Hey everyone. So now we've gone from the home studio into the more professional hybrid studio, and we're going to go through reamping in this kind of setting. So now instead of using a very DIY, you know, uncommon technique with the pedal, we are going to use an actual reamp box. And today we're using the ReAmp XTC reamp box. And I just want to start this video off by breaking down the signal flow once again in kind of a more hands-on setting. When we turn it over to Logic, we are going to be using UAD Apollo. We're going to incorporate a patch bay, but really it's all as simple as this at its core. So let's break it down. So on the back of our interface, you will see some outputs. So right here we have a line output, and we're going to use line output 3 in this case, and we're going to go into our reamp box. Now again, our reamp box is converting a line level signal into a signal that's safe enough to put into something like a guitar pedal or into an amplifier like this Kemper. So we're going to go into the input back here, and then from here we're going to take our instrument cable, because now we've converted it. Now that it's entered this box, we've converted that signal. So now we can take your regular instrument cable and put it, in this case, we're going to use the send on the back of the box. So as you can see on the back of this box, there's a send. And so we're going to plug into that. And now that we have this cable, this now becomes our path to any instrument level box we want. So we got a Boss Super Chorus, for example. We can pretend that this is a big amplifier, or, we have a Kemper right here. We can plug right into that Kemper. And from our Kemper, we can decide where we put our audio in our DAW. And that's essentially how reamping works with this box. Now, another option, and what we'll do in the video after this, is that we can use the back of this box as an effects loop. So we can send into any number of pedals, and on the last pedal, return back in or receive. And then if we look at the front of this, we can engage the loop that we're using and mix between the dry and wet. Additionally, and what we use the send for in general, we can give it more signal and attenuate the signal as needed so that we're not distorting when we're going back into our DAW. In this case, we're going to be using Logic. So let's go ahead and flip over there. All right, guys. So now we are in the DAW, we're in Logic, and we have this DI guitar signal that sounds like this. Let's hear it. All right, as you can hear, cool, fine, clean, but it obviously sounds like it's supposed to be distorted. Now, realistically, chances are we had something like this going. We recorded DI in Logic. We're doing a rock track, demoing something out. And we probably used the stock Logic amp designer, and we got some tone like this. Nothing wrong with that tone, but let's say we want to just get something more pro sounding, really just be able to maybe play with something different, have a variety to choose from. We have a DI recorded signal. Now, how do we get that DI signal out of our interface and into something like a Kemper that we have over here? We have a really nice amp modeler. How do we get that out? We're going to come out of our interface. We're going to run into the reamp box and use the send to go directly in to the Kemper or any amp that we might be using. So let's break down how that works in the DAW. Particularly, let's go through how that works in Logic. Now, I talked about how in Pro Tools we had inserts, but we were kind of limited in how we could route those inserts. So it didn't really work unless you actually had an insert send and return on the back of your interface, which, if that sounds complicated, it kind of is. Most consumer grade interfaces rarely have send and return insert sections and things like that. So you're kind of limited when it comes to that. Customization, as far as that goes, is not so simple to figure out. But in Logic, we have something called the I/O plugin, which actually works the same as an insert, but with a key difference that you can choose whatever output you want, and you can choose whatever input path you want, and it stays on the insert section, meaning now you don't have to use a send to come out and record that send back in. We have a much more streamlined, sophisticated way of doing it. So here we have output 5, and if we look at our patch bay, output 5 is normaled, which means hardwired in patch bay speak, to the input of our XTC, our reamp box. Now, from the reamp box, we're coming out and plugging right into that Kemper. Where does that Kemper go? That Kemper on our patch bay is also normaled, hardwired to input 3 on our patch bay. So if we set it to output 5 and input 3 on our I/O in this case, and this will always be different for whatever you're using it for, you just got to pay attention to what you're plugging into. But if we do that, we should be able to hear our DI guitar signal going through the Kemper and coming back out. So let's listen to that. Huge difference right there. Now, that is definitely why we use a reamp box, to turn something that sounds like this and may have been recorded sounding like this, meaning we demoed it this way with this plugin. But we ultimately want to get it to sound something more like this. Now, in conclusion, there's nothing really wrong with using your amp sims and doing that stuff in the box. I mean, in a way, the amp we're using today is kind of like an amp sim on steroids. You know, it's just a really good modeling plugin, but in physical form, and we got all this flexibility with it. The point of this, though, is not to knock something like this, but rather to show you that if you want to use the real thing, if you want to come out and really turn some knobs, the technology is there for you. We have that there for you. Whether you're using a $100 reamp box, whether you're using your DIY boss pedal kind of hacking it sort of way, or you're using something like the Radial XTC, you can achieve those pro tones. You can have the flexibility to play around the way you want to. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.